This video is going to be my top 20 progressive songs of the 1970s. Now, there is such an exhaustive list of great progressive rock songs from the 70s, so it's really hard to narrow it down. But what I try to do, and the measurement that I use for a great progressive rock song, is it takes you on a journey. You start at point A and you get to point B, and all the way in between, you're going different places. The tempo might get faster, and then it might get slower, and then suddenly it gets a lot faster, but then it gets into a moody part. But all through the way, you're seeing different things, you're getting different textures, you're just getting different moods, different changes in melody, changes in tempo, just so many things happening. And, it's like driving across the country. In some spots it's real mountainous, and then in other places it's just flat terrain. And then you might get into some desert, and then you get into where it's real cold. And so there's just a lot of different changes that happen during the course of that song. And so I think this list reflects a lot of that. But I'm going to start with number 20, obviously, and work my way up. So number 20 is going to be Deep Purple, Child in Time from the In Rock album. And that, to me, is one of the most perfect examples of slow, then getting into total tempo change, into frenetic, fast-paced, lightning speed solo from Ritchie Blackmore. It starts out just so quiet and so slow. You just hear the little keyboard melody going along there, and you just think, okay, this is going to be a slow, just kind of a moody track. And then when it picks up and they kick in with the tempo, it is at a lightning speed. And Ritchie Blackmore has just got a blazing guitar solo in the middle of that song. It's going so fast, you can almost smell the smoke coming off the fretboard. It's just amazing. It's such a thrilling track to listen to. And then it slows down again. And then the tempo picks up again. And then it's just so many changes in mood, tempo, feel, pace, everything about it is just so exhilarating to listen to. Number 19, I'm going to go with Led Zeppelin, No Quarter, and I'm going to pick the version on The Song Remains the Same, the live version, just because to me it's a little more progressive in feel, it's a little bit longer, but it's just a great John Paul Jones Mellotron showcase. Just one of the moodiest pieces in Led Zeppelin's entire catalog. It was originally on the Houses of the Holy album, but I think it really takes on a different life in The Song Remains the Same as they performed it live. But just, love it. The lyrics are suitably kind of spooky and hard to penetrate. And just everything about it. It's just such a cool, John Bonham keeps perfect time. Doesn't get too flashy on the drums, but it's just something, I love to listen to it with the lights off and just kind of let the whole track wash over you. It's one of my favorite Led Zeppelin songs. Number 18, I am going to go with Heart of the Sunrise from the Fragile album by the band Yes. You don't hear this track brought up too much when people are compiling their favorite Yes songs, but just love every part about it. It starts out very frenetic. Bill Bruford was hands down my favorite Yes drummer, maybe one of my favorite drummers of all time. But just the way it starts off, it's just got such an aggressive rhythm, and the bass guitar and everything's just driving along super fast. And then there's a quick guitar lick, and then suddenly it slows down. Everything is just at a slower tempo, and it's just got this ominous organ riff. And the intensity starts to build, and then John Anderson's vocals come in, and then just after that, it's just a superb showcase for each of the Yes members to kind of show off their skills. Great songwriting, just a great journey to be taken on all the way through from where it starts and to where it ends. Just exactly what I'm talking about, where it starts off one way, it takes you to different places. And that's one of the things that Yes is great at, is over the course of one song, you go in so many different directions, you feel so many different things in a Yes song. And each time you listen to it, you discover something new that you hadn't heard the first time you listened to the song. So I'm going with Heart of the Sunrise, just because it's a great journey from start to finish. Number 17, I'm going to go with the epic Pink Floyd track, which has 8 or 9 parts to it, actually. It's the Shine On You Crazy Diamond from the Wish You Were Here album. And I know there's an anagram there. People say Shine On You Crazy Diamond, SYD for Syd Barrett. It's actually Roger Waters kind of coming to terms with the fact that he's feeling guilt over kind of kicking Syd Barrett out of the band in the late 60s because Syd was having some mental issues that were causing him to be unreliable and just generally not capable of performing live or songwriting up to the quality of their debut album. But nonetheless, it just starts off with what is actually wine bottles, I believe it is, or glasses. I thought it was some kind of synthesized riff, but it's actually part of an experiment that Pink Floyd were doing after they recorded the Dark Side of the Moon album, where they were going to record an album completely on objects that you could find around the household. I believe the working title was Household Objects. And so one of the things that they did is an experiment recording just the sounds you could get from different glasses with different volumes of water in each of the glasses. And so that's what you hear at the beginning. And then you've got Richard Wright with his keyboard riff in there, just his general keyboard riff. And then that amazing, it's only 4 notes, but David Gilmour's classic keyboard riff, the doon, doon, doon. And you can just listen to that forever. And then eventually the track kicks in and Roger Waters starts singing, and then it kind of winds down and you get to Welcome to the Machine. And then it picks up again at the end of side 2 for that album. But just taken as a whole, it's just a remarkable piece of music. And Pink Floyd having the challenge of following up a classic album like Dark Side of the Moon, they really brought their A game on that track, and it does not disappoint. Next one I'm going to go with for 16 is Kansas, Song for America. Now, if I hadn't known this was Kansas, you could have fooled me into thinking this was actually Genesis, early Genesis. It's got a very stately, majestic theme to it. You've got the violin there that carries the melody, and it just rocks out in the middle. I just love it. It's not one of their better known tracks unless you're into Kansas, but I just find that it's so, and I don't know if Genesis was an influence on Kansas, but I can't help but think they had to have been. Just the fact that there's so much there that reminds me of the classic Peter Gabriel era Genesis. But it's just a really rewarding and fulfilling track all the way through. And it's on the album called Song for America. Number 15, I'm going to go with Queen's March of the Black Queen. This is a track that's both menacing and gorgeous at the same time. And you can see, listening to this track, it really foreshadows the masterpiece that was Bohemian Rhapsody. There's so many elements, both vocally and instrumentally, that you find honed to perfection later on in Bohemian Rhapsody. But I really love this track a lot, and it's on the Queen 2 album, which most people who are just aware of their greatest hits kind of overlook the first 2 Queen albums. But there's a lot of progressive stuff on both of those. And for me, one of my favorites is definitely March of the Black Queen, which is on side 2. Number 14, I'm going to go with Rush Xanadu from The Farewell to Kings. Again, it's a track that takes you so many different places. It starts off very slow, very classical with the acoustic guitar, and then it starts gradually building in tempo. It gets harder, it gets heavier, and then it quiets down again. It's sung so well by Geddy Lee. You know, fabulous guitar work from Alex Lifeson. It's just, you know, Rush was starting to gradually move out of their early progressive phase with that. They would still do some of it on Hemispheres, but there's some elements of it that, you know, they're starting to, I think, move in that direction out of the traditional progressive classic rock instrumentation. And I think Xanadu was one of the first hints of that. Got a little farther towards the eventual sound that they would have on their classic albums, Permanent Waves and Moving Pictures. But Xanadu is just a fantastic track. Number 13, I'm going to go with King Crimson, Lark's Tongue in Aspic, which is the title track from the album of the same. It was released in 1973, the same year as Dark Side of the Moon. But it's just a blazing progressive rock track. The guitar solo in the middle, it almost sets your ears on fire. It's just so blistering, so frenetic. It's just one of my favorite guitar solos of all time. It's just a breakneck speed. It's just so crazy to listen to that. And, you know, people talk about, especially fans of the 90s and the grunge movement, you know, grunge was very much known for, well, we're starting off soft, and then the chorus gets very heavy, and then it softens down again, and then it gets heavy again. But that really, you know, nobody did it better than the progressive bands. And this is a great representation of that. If you're not familiar with King Crimson, this would be the first song that I would encourage you to track down, because it's just such an epic showpiece for a great ensemble playing, just great skillful playing by each member of the band on that track. And it's just one of their best. Number 12, I'm going to go with Genesis, Firth of Fifth, from the Selling England by the Pound album. It starts out, it's a great track, which is led by a piano riff by Tony Banks. And it starts off on a very kind of majestic piano riff, which is then converted into a synthesizer riff. And it's the same melody played over and over. It's not like there's not a lot of improvisation during this song. It's the same riff, and then there's a middle section which Steve Hackett plays beautifully on the guitar. Just the guitar tone that he uses, he's just very sparing in the notes. It's not a huge, hey, listen to me, look how fast I can play these notes. It's just a very understated guitar riff. And Steve Hackett, like I said, one of the most underrated progressive guitarists in progressive rock. But listen to that solo and just how he totally carries the melody along, but he does it without a lot of flash. And it's just such an interesting and moving guitar solo. The way he plays off all the keyboard riffs that Tony Banks is just done playing. And then Tony Banks picks it up after Steve Hackett has his guitar solo. Then Tony Banks picks it up again. And then there's the interplay between the keyboards, which pick up in tempo, and the drums. And then it's back to the Steve Hackett. So it's just an amazing track. And just a way that you can do more with less. Because Genesis is not, you know, they're not there to kind of blow anybody off the stage, or it's just really great use of, you know, space and melody and tempo. Everything about it is just fantastic. If you haven't heard it yet, check it out on Spotify or however you stream your music. Number 11, I'm going to go with Yes, the first track on, it takes up the whole first side of the Tales from Topographic Oceans album. It's The Revealing Science of God. And talk about a journey. And Tales from Topographic Oceans is not my favorite Yes album. It's very cumbersome in spots. There's an absence of melody when you get over into like the third and fourth sides. It's a double album set. But if they had just kept it at one record set and Revealing Science of God had almost been broken up into separate sections, I think they would have had another Fragile on their hands, because that track, over the course of its 20-some minutes that it goes on, it goes to so many different places. It has so many different tempos. It's got so much inventive guitar, keyboard passages, John Anderson's lyrics, which, I don't know if, I think he was reading... it had something to do with the yogi, or I'm not familiar with the exact book that it was taken from, but the lyrics, they're interesting, I'll say the least. I don't pretend to be able to say exactly what it's about, but to me, it doesn't matter. If the music's great, I don't care what he's singing about. He could be singing about, having a root canal, but it just goes to so many different places. It is, when I talk about a journey, where it starts off with to where you go at the end, it's just so breathtaking. And it might take a couple of listens to kind of reveal itself and just the beauty of it all. But if you listen to it, give it a couple chances, it just might be one of your favorite Yes songs. And that was the way it was with me. I heard it for the first time, and that album is just a lot to digest, hearing it for the first time. And really the only track that I really listen to anymore, if I'm going to listen to that album, is side one, the first track. But it's just gorgeous. It's everything that I love about going for the one and Close to the Edge, elements of Fragile, elements of the Yes album. There's just bits and pieces of it all over the place that I just adore. So it's a great track, and my number 11. Number 10, I'm going to go back to Pink Floyd for the track Dogs off the Animals album. And it's the only song on that album that Dave Gilmour sings on, but it's a total David Gilmour smorgasbord of excellent guitar work. The whole album, if you're not familiar with the Animals album, it's one of their darkest. There's just a real dark, menacing vibe to all the songs on that album. And Dogs is where it goes dark immediately. The first track on the album is Pigs on the Wing Part 1, and it's light. It's just a Roger Waters and an acoustic guitar. It's a love song to his wife at the time. And then all of a sudden, we get into Dogs, and right off the bat, the subject matter is dark. Just everything about the track is just real creepy and sinister. That's really the best word that I would use to describe Dogs, is just sinister. The lyrics, David Gilmour's guitar playing has never been better. He's just all over the place. Solo after solo. Has a great vocal on it, but it's just so much great guitar work from David Gilmour on that song. And then you've got the use of the vocoder, the dogs barking, which is just chilling to hear, and the echo. And then you've got Richard Wright with the great kind of eerie synthesizer interlude, which just kind of heightens your anxiety. It's really hard not to listen to that song and just kind of feel a sense of dread. But I love that track just because it makes you feel a certain way, and it really, it almost stands your hair on end. And it's just so, great music makes you feel, it's not just a passive listening experience. And Dogs, for me, is just one of the great progressive rock tracks of all time. Number 9, I'm going to go with Kansas for Carry On Wayward Sun from the Left Overture album. Kansas could write some killer riffs, and this song has got riffs in spades. It's just such, I think sometimes we get desensitized to how great songs are over time because we've heard them so often on classic radio, and oh no, not that song again. And for me growing up, I heard that song on the radio all the time, and not being, as my tastes weren't as sophisticated as they are now. And so I just kind of dismissed it like, yeah, whatever. But now, I mean, listening back to it with a set of fresh ears, especially if you haven't heard that track in a long time, go back and listen to it because holy crap, it's just the most ear-catching riffs just all the way through. It's just so, I mean, the song is structured so brilliantly. The singing is fantastic. You got everybody at the top of their game. And just, it's like one riff after another. And then again, with now we're going to slow it down. We're going to get quiet. And then we're going to build it back up. We're going to take you to a totally different place with a total blistering guitar solo, keyboard workout. Just everybody is taking their turn shining on this song. And it's just so fantastically overwhelming. Not that the Kansas albums that came before it weren't good, but to just hear that as a lead-off track is like, holy crap, just such a fantastic song. And if you can put aside, you know, I've heard that song a million times, but just try to listen to it with a fresh set of ears and just how amazing that track is. It's every time I try to appreciate just what an accomplishment that was and what a tour de force for Kansas to finally break through, get on the radio and get the recognition they deserved. And that song is just epic. Number 8, I'm going to go with Emerson, Lake and Palmer, the title track from the Tarkus album. That's another one where it's just slowly, like, you put it on and then you can hear the song rising in the distance. There's just this drone. And then all of a sudden, you get Keith Emerson on the keyboards, just this frenetic guitar riff, like somebody racing out of breath. It's just the speed and the tempo of it. And then there's a synthesizer, and then it starts rocking, but then it slows down. And it's just a very soft, almost like the start of, there's elements of Child in Time from Deep Purple, a part of this track, just the way the keyboard is, the tempo, and how it shifts from, you know, lightning fast, and then we're going to slow it down, we're going to take it at an easy pace, and then it just kind of builds. There's the frenetic middle section, and then it takes you into just different places, and Keith Emerson shines. You know, Greg Lake does a great job. Carl Palmer, also fantastic on the drums. Just a great, everything that was great about Emerson, Lake and Palmer is right there on that track. All you need to hear. If you only hear one Emerson, Lake and Palmer track before you die, that, for my money, would be the one to hear. Number 7, I am going to go with Queen, the Prophet song from Night at the Opera. Now, I know you hear Night at the Opera, you immediately think Bohemian Rhapsody, of course, but I'm not sure that you can entirely classify that song as progressive rock, whereby the Prophet song is not only one of the most amazing Queen songs, but just such an impressive progressive rock showcase. And it's a Brian May composition. And I believe he wrote it. He had a dream about a great flood. I don't know that it was necessarily the biblical Noah's Ark flood, but that's what he was writing about. And there's so many great sections, but, you know, with most bands, like, there's vocals, but the vocals are not part of the instruments. The vocals are there to carry the story forward. And not that there's not great vocals in progressive rock, but nowhere in any progressive rock song will you hear vocals like you do in a Queen song. There's this middle part that Freddie Mercury just sings, and I know part of it, the speed is varied, and they're kind of messing with the speed of the tapes a little bit, but still, you know, it's almost like I wonder if Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys wouldn't have listened to this and been totally impressed just by how they pull off that vocal canon in the middle. And it's just like, it goes on for a while, and yet it's Freddie Mercury's voice, and I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but it's an instrument unto itself. But it's just such a great, fantastic use of vocal as an instrument, as a progressive rock instrument also. And it's just gorgeous. It's beautiful. Freddie Mercury can pull it off like no other singer can. But if you haven't checked out not only that album, but in particular, give that song another listen if you just kind of breeze through it and maybe didn't spend any time with it. But it's just an amazing, amazing track. And Brian May obviously is a fantastic guitarist. And, you know, I'm not going to take anything away from the other members of the band, but I just feel, I just wanted to point out just how integral Freddie Mercury's voice is as an instrument unto itself as part of Queen's songs. Number 6, I'm going to go with Gates of Delirium by Yes. And again, another Yes track that takes you on such a thrilling journey. And it's another one where on first listen to it, it might be a lot to absorb, but, you know, put it back on, listen to it again, and listen to it again. And the more you listen to it, it's really like peeling back an onion. It's like there's so many different layers to it. And it goes in so many different directions, so many different tempos. And it's just really, I mean, listen to the skill, the virtuosity of each member of that band. You got Patrick Moraz, who had huge shoes to fill, filling in for Rick Wakeman, and yet he does a tremendous job. You got the amazing guitar work of Steve Howe going there. You know, John Anderson, obviously, with his great vocals. And, you know, it's a great journey. I'll leave it at that. It's a great track for a road trip. If you're putting together a road trip playlist, or even if you've got a half-hour drive and you want something truly interesting to listen to, play Gates of Delirium from the Relayer album by Yes. Absolutely great. Now, number 5, I really hesitated including this on the list because it's one of those like Carry On Wayward Sun where it's like, I've heard this song played to death, and this is so cliche. It's a track that so many people point to as, I've heard this song to death. I'm so tired of this song. Not Freebird, but Stairway to Heaven. I know, but again, you have to listen to it with fresh ears. Not, I've heard this 100 times over the course of my lifetime so far, but just as a great song, if you were hearing this for the first time, it's such a well-constructed song all the way through. And it starts off so gentle with just the acoustic guitar riff, and then you get the flute, and it just starts building and building, and then you get John Bonham on the drums, and then the tempo picks up, and then it's just at the end, it's just such a great workout, you know, with Jimmy Page on his guitar work and the solos flying in from everywhere, and John Bonham on the drums, keeping the tempo going, Robert Plant singing like only Robert Plant can. So I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know about Stairway to Heaven, but for me, it's got to be top 5 on any progressive rock list. Number 4, I'm going to go for Genesis, Supper's Ready from the Foxtrot album. And it's an interesting song. It's one of the few progressive rock songs where it just immediately, there's not an instrumental intro. It's just the song starts with Peter Gabriel and the song. There's no intro at all. It's just the song starts and it's Peter Gabriel singing. And Peter Gabriel's got such a theatrical way of singing. There's nobody, just like there's nobody like Freddie Mercury, there's nobody as eccentric and theatrical in all of rock and roll as Peter Gabriel, especially on these early albums of Genesis. And he carries the story forward. I have no idea what the hell the song's about. But again, to me, it doesn't matter. He could be singing about brushing his teeth, and I would still be compelled to listen. But it just goes to so many different places. There's so many different left turns and then right turns. And then here's another melody we're going to throw at you. But it all just ties in together. And the song ends and you're, again, wanting more because it's just left you so fulfilled. And it's just such a fantastic track. So many people rank it high on their progressive rock list and their Genesis list. And people don't realize there was actually a Genesis before kind of the 80s pop rock that they were doing with Phil Collins at the helm. But you know, this really makes you realize just how talented a band Genesis were. Number 3, gonna go with 2112, the first track on Rush's 2112 album, takes up the whole of side one, and it's just a great track. There was so much at stake for Rush when they recorded this, and they really, it pays off in spades. I mean, they brought their A game. It's just, not only is the song well constructed, it's got different suites, again, the best things in a progressive rock song: changes in tempo, brilliant solos from, each member, a showcase for each of them. And they're really playing like, almost like Pink Floyd was with Dark Side of the Moon. Like, all the chips are on the line right now. We really have to make this work, and this has got to be our best album ever. And not that I think 2112 is Rush's best album, but they certainly play like it. It's just not only a fantastic track, but just a great album overall. If you haven't checked that album out, which I'd be surprised if you're watching this video and you're not familiar with it. So I'm not going to say too much more about it, but that's going to be number 3. Number 2, I'm going to go again to Pink Floyd for Echoes from the Metal album. It's it's almost a movie. It starts off with just almost like sonar pings, and just wait, and then there's like a ping, and then the echo, and then it fades away, and then another ping, and then slowly there's a little, it's actually, I believe, somehow they modified the piano, which is the ping that you hear, and then there's Richard Wright coming in with the keyboard riff, and then David Gilmour's got his guitar licks going, and you've got David Gilmour and Richard Wright in harmony on the vocals, and then suddenly it starts getting heavier and heavier, and then it breaks off into this funky little midsection, and David Gilmour with some scathing guitar. I don't know if that's even a word you can use musically, but just these blistering guitar riffs. You've got Roger Waters and Nick Mason holding down the beat. And it's really kind of David Gilmour and Rick Wright doing some interesting things on guitar and keyboard respectively. And then it goes into this whole underwater section where it's almost like sea creatures from the deep. And it's really spooky. Listen to it in the dark and turn the volume up, and it's just like, holy crap, what am I hearing? And you can just imagine like being underwater at the depths of the ocean, the sounds you might hear. And then it picks back up, and it's just awesome. It's the entire side of an album, but never get tired of listening to it. And it really is like a musical journey. It's almost a movie unto itself. It's just fantastic, and one of my favorite Pink Floyd songs. Number 1, not going to be a surprise if you saw my favorite progressive rock albums, but I'm going to go with Yes, Close to the Edge. Can't say enough about it. My favorite Yes track of all time. And again, everything great that I've said about these other progressive rock tracks is what I'm going to say about this track. This is going to be one of my longest videos ever, but I think it's worth it. It's almost, representative of progressive rock in general, kind of long, unwieldy in some cases, but nonetheless, just not a wasted moment on this entire track. It's just so gorgeous. Again, there's different suites, and it gets heavy in spots, it gets slow, it gets just quiet, and then loud, and then quiet, and then loud, and then super loud and super fast, just all over the place. But it works so well. It's so cohesive, and it's such a fantastic work from what I consider the classic, my favorite Yes lineup. So that is my top 20. I'm interested to hear what yours are. Appreciate any comments you have. If you're not a subscriber yet to this channel and you thought it sucked, subscribe anyway. I promise I'll get better. I'm trying. I know this video is a bit long, but thank you for watching, and everybody take care.